This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. We want to say thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. And remember, we are free and available wherever you download your podcast. And once you download that bad boy, just go ahead and give us a 5-star review. You know why you need to do that? So everybody else can find out just how great we are. And I don't have any issue doing that because you all have told us that. Because we are so close to 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. Oh, my God. If you haven't liked us, wherever you've been, you need to join the party right now. We got so much good stuff for you today on the show. We're going to start off with, we've been talking about the Atlanta Falcons and how they need to be better. You know what I'm saying? But we're going to explain to you exactly how they're going to be better in 2022. And Orlando Arcia, he's making us look very smart. We're going to talk about that. And last but not least, and for the culture, a player saves a referee's life. Whoo. We'll get into that. But before we get to all of that, y'all, we like I said, we've talked about on this show, T, as far as how much the defense needs to be better, and we explicitly said that, they need to sack the quarterback in order for them to start that process, right? And also they need a little bit more talent on the opposite side of A.J. Terrell, and they've done that and bringing in Casey Hayward, and we'll get to some really good things that came out of Flowery Branch yesterday as far as practice goes. But for you, what other little snippet or nugget needs to happen in order for this defense so we'll know for a fact this defense will be better?
Yeah. And there's one thing that we always say when we talk about that pass rush, right? We say, yes, we acknowledge that it's obvious, it's a no-brainer that the Falcons will need to get more productivity in the way of sacks this season. Right. But the one thing we always use as a caveat is we would also feel like it was a successful season if the pass rush could affect the quarterback, because if you can affect him and still affect that passing game, even if you're not getting as many sacks per se, that's still going to be a success. I think the same thing when I think about the secondary. So if Eric Harris and Dean Marlowe, assuming that, they would be your starting safeties, if you will, if Isaiah Oliver brings it when he comes in for those special packages, especially because it's starting to kind of become that guy in the nickel packages, if they partner, as you mentioned, with both Hayward and Terrell, and even if the interceptions don't uptick exponentially, right? But you know that you can't just try to avoid passing to Terrell, because that's what offenses did last year. They just threw on the other side of the field, and that's how they were able to get some success, especially with the long ball. If you're able to make that offensive coordinator think twice about going in another direction and make him think like, wow, there's Terrell Island over there, but there are 4 other guys that are going to make me pay if I'm not careful. To me, that's also a success because that also affects the game, if you will. And it's not always in the stats, although we know these stats need to pick up in terms of interceptions, if you will. But again, I go back to the model that you and I have used, where if there can be an affecting of the game in that particular area, I would consider that to be a success and an uptick from what we saw to the secondary last season.
No doubt about it. And I think I'll add to what you were saying just a little bit, push back on the far that safety combination, because I believe that if we see a Richie Grant Hawkins combination at that starting safety tandem, that's when you're going to see those interceptions, because those guys are some hawks. No pun intended with Jalen Hawkins.
Right.
But I think that, those two guys have the ceiling is a little bit higher as far as from a playmaking standpoint, right? Turning teams over. Because we know turnovers help the offense as well. And Lord knows the offense going to need all the help it can get.
Yes.
Given where they are as far as from offensive line standpoint. Not saying they don't have any weapons. They have plenty of weapons to choose from. And they're going to have to shrink that down some way, somehow, because they seem like they got 12 receivers in that room over there, in those meeting rooms. So, but I think that their defense is primed and ready to be better, because also to add Casey Hayward in there, because Coach Smith talked about him, and he said he's a smart football mind.
Yes.
And he's a guy that he needs to pass some of that wisdom down. And Casey Hayward talked about that being one of his biggest assets, right?
Yes.
To be a leader in the classroom, and just in case those guys got any type of questions or anything like that. And I think that's the part that is going to be the difference from last year, because Fabian Moreau was on the other side of AJ Terrell. That's an easy. That was a low-bearing fruit as far as what went wrong last year. So I think that when it's good to have veterans and mix in the veteran, but I think that veteran has to be able to play as well. Like, you can't just be. I've been in the league for 3 or 4 years, and therefore, you got to be able to play. And I think Hayward still bring that to the table. So I think that's going to be a big difference for the Falcons on the back end of the defense.
Oh, yeah. Arthur Smith, we say it almost every day. He's about that competition life. And that's what that's going to be. But I'm so glad that you mentioned one name. Nothing against Richie Grant, by the way. I agree with you on that one. But I'm so glad that you mentioned Jalen Hawkins' name, because I will admit sometimes I feel like, even for me, I was thinking his name, right? But I didn't actually say it. And the reason I'm going back to just that quick snippet before we move on is because I believe he might be one of those who's a little bit of the forgotten guys, right? From the draft classes of the last couple of years. So maybe this will be that year where he takes that even, bigger step, if you will. So I just wanted to point that out and agree with you and co-sign on Jalen Hawkins, because sometimes I do think, especially with the excitement around bringing in, the excitement of having still that veteran of an Eric Harris, if you will, or even we talk about Dean Marlowe and kind of the excitement about having him, and you tend to kind of overlooked, not so much even Richie, but sometimes Richie, but definitely I feel like Jalen Hawkins is overlooked, and that, who knows, that could be a motivation for him as well to say, I'm about to prove that I can be one of those guys.
No doubt about it. And I think that there are a lot of guys that feel like they have something to prove, and I think that's not coincidence at all. What's not coincident at all is that the Boston Celtics are going to be taking on the Golden State Warriors tonight at 9:00. T, I'm going to ask a simple question. Who wins tonight? And is it possible that Steph Curry can get that 4th championship?
Yeah, it's Steph Curry getting the 4th championship is absolutely possible, whether it happens tonight or whether it happens in Game 7 on Father's Day. So happy pre-Father's Day to everybody, including Jarvis. But I think that the bigger question for me was about Steph and his legacy, and whether or not winning Game 6 is going to be the legacy, or winning this championship is going to be the legacy. Because I know for me, when I saw him in Game 4, I didn't say it to you, but in my mind, I thought, oh, he's not coming back in Game 5 and doing anything close to that. Not because I felt like Al Horford would shut him down, although he, did kind of give him fits in Game 5. But more of it was, Steph's just older, and the body just doesn't recover from that kind of game that quickly, right? So when I'm thinking about Game 6, however, they say Steph was livid. So I'm going to say that's a positive. They say Klay Thompson is ready to be Game 6 Klay. And Klay has gone from averaging about 14 points in Games 1 and 2 to now averaging about 21 points in these last 3 games, right? So I think there's every opportunity, especially if Klay shows up and if Steph shows up, but Andrew Wiggins and Jordan Poole don't take that as an opportunity to take the night off. I think that it then bodes extremely well for the Warriors to take this game. However, the Celtics don't really lose back-to-back games. They did this time, but it's not something that we've seen from them in the postseason. They tend to course correct better than anybody, coupled with the fact that the Warriors are 3-3 this postseason when it comes to closeout games, and 0-3. That's a critical one. 0-3 on the road. Hard for me not to go with the Celtics for Game 6, and that would actually lean more into your prediction of this going 7 than my prediction of this going Game 6. But I do feel like Jason Tatum has recognized you have got to protect the ball better, and they've got to stop playing hero ball on offense, because you know what it's doing? It's actually stagnating their defense. That's why they were standing around, because they kept standing around on offense, just letting one person hit, and it ended up affecting their defense. But I think they'll course correct that tonight.
No doubt about it. And I think, just to add just one little more piece to the whole Steph Curry legacy thing, right? I think that if he's able to get the Finals MVP, which is, I think, is just so stupid of an argument, because for a lot of people who say that, he needs to get the Finals MVP in order to be considered a top 15 player of all time, which is such malarkey. Yes. So if I can use a word without cussing. But I think that, if he's able to get it, which I do believe, if he gives a solid game and they are able to pull it out tonight, I think they will go ahead and he'll be the Finals MVP.
No question.
I don't think Andrew Wiggins has had that. He's had really good games, but not on that level to leapfrog, Steph Curry. So for those people who think that Steph Curry is not a top 15 player of all time, for them, this is the legacy game.
This is the legacy
game. If he's able to pull it out and close this bad boy out on the road in Boston, I think that'll be something that that'll add to the already long history of what Steph Curry has done in the NBA. But coming up next, though, T. Orlando Arcia out there, he got the first RBI of the game. He started the party, and he sure doggone ended that bad boy. We will discuss how Orlando Arcia is making us look like some sports geniuses. That's next, right here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. This is ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra.